So God bless you, CUT. How you all doing this morning? Yeah. To our CUT digital family, God bless you. We love you. I love my church. I don't know, man, I can't even front. I love my church. I cannot front. I love my church. How about you? All right. And man, so I just want to just go right on into it because what I want to do on this morning is pick up a part of where we left off last week with the who we are lesson, and then I want to move into the what we are about part of today's lesson. But I believe there's some value in just revisiting some of where we were last week, and in church development context, there is this notion that there is some value in doing what Nehemiah did. About halfway through the process when Nehemiah was rebuilding the wall or leading the rebuilding of the wall, about halfway through the process, the people started to get a little bit weary. And according to the scripture, it took about 52 days to build the wall. And right about halfway point, about at the 26th day point, folks just started to get weary. You know, so sometimes you can be engaged in the progress of a thing and not see enough progress to have you be encouraged. Do you know what I mean? And so the Nehemiah perspective says that at every 26 days or so, every month, at least once a month, there is some value in bringing the community back to the purpose for which it exists. Are you with me? And so as we move forward today, I just want to remind you of the purpose for CUT. Why does CUT exist? We exist to teach the universal spiritual principles as taught and demonstrated by Jesus Christ. And we teach those purposes, or we experience those purposes, and we share those purposes in community through our fivefold purpose. Our fivefold purpose is to teach and preach, to pray, healing, fellowship, and service. That is the fivefold purpose of Christ Universal Temple. On last week, we dealt with the teaching part, and I don't even think I touched the preaching part, did I? Pop quiz. Pop quiz. Sounds like, well, if I don't remember, I can't blame you for not remembering. So let's just touch it. Let's just touch it a little bit. We talked about the teaching part, and let me just say parenthetically, when we talk about teaching as a staple and foundational part of this ministry, it's not just what happens here on Sunday morning. If you really, say really, if you really want to be able to get the true essence and benefit out of what this ministry has to offer in terms of helping you live a better life, I want to encourage you to take advantage of more than just Sunday morning, right? That's Sunday morning. There are 52 Sundays in a year out of 365 days. For most of those 365 days, there is another learning opportunity for you. So I want to encourage you to strongly consider taking a class, because I firmly believe that while I live out of my consciousness, I am better equipped to do what God called me to do because I had the good fortune of sitting at the feet of the teacher of teachers. I am the product of the Reverend Dr. Helen Carey. I spent 7 years on the board with Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, and she always taught, but I was rarely in a class that was led by Reverend Coleman. Most of my sowing that I received from Reverend Coleman came on Sunday morning. So you can get it on Sunday morning, but if you want to extrapolate it, you want to get into class, because I am the product of my teacher, the Reverend Dr. Evelyn Boyd. She is the one who taught me the necessity of taking seriously the opportunity you give me when you open your mind to what it is I have to say. She said, don't play with these people. She said, take it serious. And you know what she told me? She told me, if you can't take it serious, find something else to do. Did you tell me that, mother? I am the product of my sister, the Reverend Dr. Fannie McCullough. Reverend Fannie McCullough said to me, I see something in you. This is a true story. In one of my earliest classes, Reverend Fannie McCullough and Reverend Marcella Davis were some of the first people in this ministry to say, I see something in you. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I want you to explore it, Janet. Am I lying, Reverend Fannie? I wouldn't tell you a story, at least not on purpose. So I want to encourage you to get into a class. It's where you can really get it, because on Sunday, what I'm going to give you is some teaching, but I'm also going to give you some preaching. Right? And so when you come on Sunday morning, just know that the teaching and preaching that you receive from this platform is intended to make you move. It's not intended to let you be comfortable staying where you are. It is an exhortation to move you from where you are to where you are destined and designed and determined to be. See, it is God's will that you experience more than you currently have right now. It is God's will that you have more health and experience greater health than you're experiencing right now. It is God's will that your relationships are a point of pleasure for you and not a point of pain, but you have to know how to use your mind to attract the things and the people that will enable that experience. Are you with me? And so the preaching is not in order for you to just hear me talk. Nothing improves by chance. It only improves by change. And so you and I, as a part of the exhortation of the preaching, are being pushed to move. If it makes you uncomfortable, that's a good thing. If it feels like I'm talking to you, that's a good thing. That's what it's supposed to be. Like, who told him my business? Nobody told me, except for the all-knowing God. Nobody has said anything to me about what's going on with you. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't care. I got too much stuff. My work is with me. Are you with me? So I'm not trying to get in your business. When you hear a preacher in the 30-something years that I've been a part of this ministry, I've seen basically three kinds of preaching being presented from this platform. I've seen the expository preaching. I've seen the exegetical preaching. Who remembers the Reverend Dr. Mary Tumpkin? The Reverend Dr. Mary Tumpkin was a biblical scholar, and so when she taught us through an exegetical lens. The Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman was more topical in her preaching, and so as the fruit of her labor, I tend to be more topical in my preaching. But the topic is intended to help with your transformation. It's not just for you to have information, it's so that you can experience transformation. Are you with me? So the teaching and the preaching that you receive here are intended for you to put them to work in your life. Are you with me? We talked about prayer on last week. And we talked about the power that comes when those of us who recognize that we have an opportunity to be a part of the collective prayer consciousness of this community. I said to you last week, a prayerless ministry is a powerless ministry. And many of you said to me after service last Sunday, we've been praying for you. Don't think for a moment I don't know it. Oh, I know it. I feel it. As a matter of fact, I pray nobody ever has to pastor or lead a church anywhere where the people in that church aren't praying for them. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Are you with me? And so I know that you are praying for me. I feel it. It is the wind underneath my wings. So I know you got me. I'm not questioning that. I am saying we can do better. How many of you know we can do better? We can do better. We can do better. So I'm encouraging us to do better because prayer is a part of our fivefold purpose. And let me just say to you, as a matter of course, it is not just my responsibility to pray us forward. It is not just the responsibility of the ministers and teachers to hold up the prayer consciousness. It is the responsibility of the entire community. Somebody say entire community. It is the responsibility of the entire community to be a part of the prayer consciousness of this ministry. It's our collective responsibility. But watch and see what happens when two or more touch and agree. If just two can touch and agree. If just you and I can touch and agree, Linda, and things start to move. If just two of us can do it, and it starts to shift things. What happens when 5 of us do it? What happens when those of us who decide join with what the prayer ministry is already doing? What happens in the life of this community? And I don't just mean this community, I mean the life around us. What happens when people who understand who they are and whose they are reconnect to that truth and dig into the work that they have been called to? What happens? You show up in a powerful way. See, I know somebody was standing in the gap for me. When I walked away from a street corner just talking stuff with a young man who was just gunned down seconds before, I just walked away from him and walked to my car. And by the time I got in my car, Barry, and slammed the door, he was laying on the corner, shot down. I know somebody is praying for me, Nate. I know somebody's praying for me, Jackie. I know somebody's praying with me. I know somebody's praying with me. Has been for a long time. And I'm saying that same power can be multiplied how many times over? I was reading some research not long ago, and they were talking about this community, these communities that were connected they were positioned around this meditation center. And what the research was suggesting was that the people who lived in the communities that surrounded the meditation center were starting to have fewer maladies than before the meditation center arrived. Here is what they were getting at. They never said it, but here's what they were suggesting. The activity happening on the inside of that place was changing stuff on the outside of the place. And you are not that different. For the longest time, the only thing right here was you. Now you look across the street, there's a shopping center. You look to the east, there's a whole multi-million-dollar complex. You look a little bit further east, there's more development. You look right behind you, there's a whole solar farm. I believe that what was happening in here has impacted what was happening out there. And so we have an opportunity, we have a responsibility to be the light. Are you with me? And so part of the contribution that we make and live out of our fivefold purpose is that of prayer. Another part of our fivefold purpose is that of healing. This space, somebody say this space. This space is intended to be a healing space. How do you know, Reverend? Because within the DNA of the divine, of the soul experience of its founder is a healing experience. Her experience is a part of our foundation. As a matter of fact, this idea was catalyzed by that experience. Are you with me? And so as a part of the DNA of the divine for Christ Universal Temple, healing is a real, true possibility and activity for those who understand and know how to apply it. Are you with me? But watch this. But it's not enough for it to be a part of the foundation, right? So then there are lots of healing stories. Are you with me? And then if that is not enough, because the founder would always say to us, you're going to have to learn to stand on your own big spiritual feet. We, out of our own collective consciousness, create a circular firing squad where when we start shooting at one another and we find ourselves split as a community. Now, she taught you that you're going to have to learn how to stand on your own big spiritual feet. What better way than to have for yourself as a community an opportunity to be healed and prove the truth that you say you know? And so while there were some wounded in our Civil War, while some souls were wounded, and while some minds were wounded, and while some hearts were wounded, there were none dead. And when we came back to ourselves, we got busy with the work of experiencing a healing. You are one of the few churches who have ever split and found its way back together in a way where it could be healthy and active and functioning for the purpose that God called it to. Don't sleep on yourself, CUT. And don't let the experience of learning convince you that you are less than God designed you to be. See, you are not the totality of your experiences, but some experiences you need in order to prove the truth that you know. Listen, be careful when the founder tells you you're going to have to learn how to stand on your own big spiritual feet, because someday the test is coming. It's going to come. And nobody's going to give you the answer. You're going to have to work the principle through it. But if you will work the principle, oh, come on now, you know it. If you will work the principle, talk to me. That's who you are. That's who you are. That's what's in you. That's your contribution to the world. You are not attracted to this ministry by chance or by mistake or by happenstance. You are attracted to this. It's a certain kind of folk who have a listening for this. Those of you watching by stream, you're not just here by chance. There's a certain kind of listening for this better living message. Are you with me? And so healing is a part of what we do. Another area of our fivefold purpose is that of service. And we say that we are the channels through which God cares for his children. We say that service is the act of helping or doing something for someone else. Those two words, when put together, are easy to overlook. But just say them with me. For someone else. See, not long ago, they had bracelets. And on the bracelet would be WWIFM. Is that right? No, WIIFM. WIIFM. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? So the inference is, if I'm going to do X, what's my Y? And because service is a part of our fivefold purpose, we are saying first, let us give you your Y. And once you get your Y, you'll be able to experience your X. Right? So our aim is to give. That's what ministry does. It gives. It pours itself out. Sometimes it means giving your seat to the person who doesn't know they're sitting in the wrong place. And here is what I mean, CUT. Nothing says you don't belong like get out of that seat. You can't make it no plainer. And everybody, say everybody. Everybody is looking to belong. We all want to be a part. And so we are a service-oriented community. When you walk in the door, someone greets you with a smile. That's service. When you walk in the door, someone hands you something to help you matriculate through the service. That's service. When you take your children upstairs, there's someone there to greet them. That's service. When you go to pick them up, they don't have a knot on their head. That's service. When you sit down in your chair, it's reliable. You can sit on it and you don't fall through the floor. That's service. When the lights come up and the mics are cued, that's service. Once the voices warm up and they sing in those different parts, and you hear the playing going doom, 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 and the voices follow the melody. That's service. And when the master musicians lead them and he started swinging and swaying, and the voices follow the swing and the sway, and the music follows the swing and the sway, that's service. We are a service-oriented ministry. When you show up in class, when classes start, someone will have given their time and their commitment and their effort to make sure that they are ready to help you get to your next level. That's service. It's what we do. It's a part of what we do. When I stand up and share a word or give leadership, it's service. We are a service-oriented community. When you call the prayer ministry and somebody prays with you on the dime, it's service. When the person next to you shares their DI with you, that's service. Right? We are a service-oriented community. It's a part of our fivefold service, or fivefold purpose. But hear me, you listening to me? Service is not for the few. It's for the many. It's not intended for a small collective of us to do lots of stuff. It's for the community to find out where you fit and to get in where you fit in. So that we as a community can serve the community. My ushers are constantly on me like, you need to recruit some more ushers. You hear them say that's right? Our ushers have been serving for decades. Yeah, come on, give it to them. And they don't have to stop until they and God decide that it's time. Who's picking up after they say I'm done? Or do we just no longer have that element of service? Because here is what I believe. I believe God has designed you to do it. Somebody's got to pick it up. If nobody picks it up, it goes away. Can I keep it 1,000 with you? Nobody picks it up, it goes away. So you show up at service and there's nobody there to give you a bulletin, it's because you didn't say yes. The last element of our fivefold purpose is that of fellowship. You say, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And the root word of fellowship is this notion that we all hold something in common. It's this notion that we are all pulling for the same thing and pulling on the same end of the rope. It is fellowship enables us to be in communion with one another, even though we may not have had the conversation that helps facilitate the understanding. See, I love my family irrespective of whether or not we had the conversation about what a thing means. We just are in fellowship together. We are on one accord. In the old church, they call it one accord. Anybody know what I mean? When there is fellowship, and when there is this sense of sameness and common purpose, that fellowship gives us the ability to accomplish synergy. And synergy is the ability to do more with others than you could do by yourself. Mm-hmm. See, when you have fellowship, you have the opportunity for synergy. And when you have synergy, you can build the first mega church in the city of Chicago. See, you can't do that without synergy. You need the family working together, and when the family works together, the family can do epic stuff. Are you with me? And so let's just take a look at what we are about. There are three words that I want to bring out to at least point to the essence of what we're about. See, when you've been in the game for 63 years, you're about a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Like when you've been around as long as we have, and when you've done as much as the ministry has done, you are about a lot of things. But I just want to pull out just a couple phrases to just kind of at 10,000 feet, just kind of highlight what it is we're about. The first word I want to share with you when it comes to what we're about, I want to use this word practical. We're practical. We are a practical metaphysical Christians. What does that mean? That means that what you hear on Sunday morning, or what you get in class, or what you will receive on prayer day, or what you will receive in a workshop, or what you will receive in your group meeting, or what you're going to get at the men's meeting is something you can take and use that same day. When we say it's practical, Judge, it means that you can apply it and prove it in your everyday life. Not airy-fairy, not super deeply. One of the first things Reverend Carey said to me is that's too high. That's too high. Like can I have a true confession moment? So I'm an intellectual. Some would say leaning toward nerd. I reject that notion. But my teachers would say that's too high. Bring it down to where we can use it. We like where you're going, like how you're thinking, but I can't use that. Give it to me where I can chew on it. Right? Give it to me right here where I can snack on it. If you can give it to me where I can snack on it, I can assimilate it and use it in my life. If you can't, you just talking. That's what my teachers told me. I don't know if Blanche is back there. Blanche is like, no, that's you come down. She's like, come down. Thank you. Come down. Okay. I'm a good student too. So what we say, what we teach, what you receive can be applied and proved in your everyday life. The founder had it, here is how she said it. You said it earlier. It works if you work it. See, that's practical. But you have to know how to work it, and you have to know what it is. Yes? So what is the it? Principle, law, mind in action. You just have to know what the it is, and then you have to know how to work it. So let me see if I can bring the it down for you. If it is a thought, And if your thought is a seed, how do you apply it right now in your everyday life? If you're trying to say, well, if he's saying that abundance is my birthright, how do I work with that right now? Let's see if we can do it. First thing you have to do is you have to be willing to plant that thought seed. So if the thought seed is whether or not I deserve abundance, and the answer is yes, you have to plant that yes to your abundance in the soil. A thought not planted in the soil can't produce your harvest. So in order to experience the abundance of the thought idea, you have to plant it. The first thing you must do is you must cultivate the soil. You must break up those areas that are resistant to your new opportunity. See, there's some hardness around whether or not you can be great, or you can have, or you can experience health or relationships that are affirming to you. So you've got to break up the doubt. You've got to break up the confusion. You've got to break up the unwillingness to accept your good. Then the next thing you have to do, after you cultivate, after you break it up. See, because if you don't break it up, God will still give you the seeds. If you don't break it up, the seeds will still fall. And if Jesus, the master teacher, is right, when the seeds fall on the hard ground, the sun just comes and burns them up. So you're trying to figure out why it won't work. It's because you haven't cultivated your soil. It's not that the truth doesn't work. It's that you haven't cultivated your soil. Next thing you have to, after you cultivate the soil, you have to nurture it. You have to nurture it. You have to encourage it. You have to speak life to your dreams. You have to speak life to the things that are important to you. You have to speak life. You have to nurture and care for the thought idea. You can't just think it once and then go back to your regular stream of thought. It has to be brought along under the nurture and care in much the same way that you would care for your child. So you can be pregnant with the idea. So you have to cultivate the baby's thought. And then you have to guard it. You have to protect it. You have to be careful about telling some folk about the good idea you have. Because some folks are just waiting to rain on that parade. So it's very practical. It's very practical. But it's also spiritual. The second word is spiritual. The second word is spiritual. It's practical Christianity, but it's also intended to remind us that we are spiritual beings. See, it's easy to get caught up in the flow of life because every day we show up this kind of way. You have to remind yourself. Somebody say, remind yourself. The primary cause of suffering is, if the primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness, the primary cause of increase is being reminded. You have to remind yourself that you are a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe that's governed by spiritual law. You have to remind yourself of this. You have to bring yourself back to this fundamental truth. I'm a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law. So if what you say about me does not resonate with the truth, what does what you say about me have to mean to me? We're spiritual beings. And because we are spiritual beings, we have a particular approach toward the stuff that's happening in our life. I can't unpack it right now. But I'll come back if you come back. The last word I want to use is different. This ministry is different. I was speaking at a leadership class for a colleague, and when in his introduction of me, he said something that struck me as odd. As he was preparing the listening of his people for my presentation, he said to them that he is different. He's telling his people, different. And that seemed really peculiar to me. Truth be told, it irked me a little bit. I'm like, different? Different? Like, what's so different about me? Like, that's just an odd descriptor. Different? Different. So I got up with a little bit of an attitude. Don't tell him, and I hope they didn't notice. But later that evening, I began to play back through. Because for me, just in how I'm wired, like I need to understand my internal cause for why I got irked by what someone else said. Right? I just need to understand where that button is, so then I can decide whether or not I'm gonna let somebody push it. It occurred to me that sometimes we try to fit in when we were made to stand out. And as I was contemplating, like, so you give leadership to a ministry that was founded by a black woman in 1956. That's different. When Rosa Parks was sitting down for equality, Johnny Coleman was standing up for upliftment. That's different. It's different. This ministry was founded and had as its core an off-center theology. In 1956 and 1966 and 1976 and 1986, very few people were saying that you have a right to be prosperous. That's different. In understanding what's a part of this foundation, there were very few ministries that were doing full bands as a part of their worship service experience in the late 70s and early 80s. That's different. And then I heard the words, "You are peculiar. And the folks who are with you are peculiar. And just be okay being peculiar because y'all just different." And so we can own the assignment to stand out rather than to try to fit in. Now listen. That does not mean we won't study success that works. Because what Reverend Coleman also taught was to pay attention to what works and then adapt it and modify it so that it works where you do your thing. So we pay attention to what works. Sometimes the inspiration is not in the idea, it's in how somebody else did it. Are you with me? And so we're good being different. We are right with being peculiar. We recognize that everybody may not be able to get with how this train moves. But here is what we also know. If you jump on board, your life will start to change so drastically that the people who used to know you won't even be able to recognize you. Your life will be transformed in such a profound way that when you show up, people want to know what you're doing because I need to do it too. When you're aboard this train and we just keep chugging along, choo, 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 choo. And every now and then, you got to be willing to blow your own horn. Woo, woo! Because God has need for this ministry right here. God intends for folk to know who they are and whose they are and what they're capable of. This train is on the tracks. God bless you.